The research vessel Helios drifted silently through the darkness of deep space, its powerful sensors probing the void around Europa 742, a newly discovered moon orbiting a gas giant in the Carina sector. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the moon's ice-covered surface, watching as strange energy readings pulsed beneath its frozen crust. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this." Marcus Rodriguez's voice crackled through the ship's comm system. The chief engineer's usual calm demeanor had given way to barely contained excitement. "The deep scan results. They're unlike anything we've ever encountered." Sarah made her way to the engineering bay, where Marcus had transformed the entire room into a holographic display of the moon's subsurface structure. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. Beneath kilometers of ice lay a vast complex of geometric structures, their architecture too precise to be natural formation. "This is impossible," she whispered, reaching out to touch the hologram. "These structures, they're made of materials we can't even identify. The energy signature suggests they're still active, after God knows how long." Captain Diana Patel entered the room, her weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the hologram. "Assessment, Dr. Chen." "Captain, we're looking at proof of an advanced civilization, but the readings suggest these structures are at least 50,000 years old. The energy patterns, they're maintaining some kind of stasis field throughout the entire complex." Diana's expression hardened. "Life support. Active, but failing. Whatever's down there, it's been fighting a losing battle against time itself." The decision was made within hours. The Helios carried the most advanced drilling equipment humanity had ever developed, designed specifically for extracting core samples from ice moons. Now it would serve a different purpose, as they began their descent into the moon's atmosphere. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to change the course of human history. The drilling operation took 3 days. 3 days of constant vibration, as the ship's thermal drills carved through kilometers of ancient ice. 3 days of mounting tension as the energy readings grew stronger, more erratic. When they finally broke through to the complex, the silence that followed was deafening. The exploration team consisted of Sarah, Marcus, and 2 security officers, Lieutenant James Wong and Sergeant Maria Alvarez. Their suits were equipped with the latest in protective technology, but Sarah doubted any of it would matter if they encountered hostile alien technology. The entrance to the complex was a massive archway, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Marcus's scanner hummed as it analyzed the patterns. "It's some kind of quantum-based language," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "The symbols aren't just written. They're actually existing in multiple states simultaneously." "Can we translate it?" Sarah asked, running her gloved hand along the surface of the arch. "The AI is working on it, but it's like trying to read a book where every word is alive and changing." "Wait." There's a pattern emerging. The symbols began to pulse with a soft blue light, and a doorway materialized in the center of the arch. Beyond it lay a vast chamber filled with thousands of crystalline structures, each containing what appeared to be a sleeping figure. "My God," Sarah breathed. "It's a sanctuary." The beings in the crystals were humanoid but clearly alien. Tall, slender figures with iridescent skin and features that seemed to blur and shift like the symbols on the arch. Each crystal pod was connected to a central pillar that thrummed with energy. Marcus moved to what appeared to be a control interface. "These are stasis pods, but they're operating on principles we can barely comprehend. They're using quantum entanglement to preserve not just their bodies, but their entire consciousness patterns." "Why?" Lieutenant Wong asked, his hand never far from his weapon. "Why would an entire civilization choose to go into stasis?" The answer came from the central pillar. As they approached, a holographic interface sprang to life, displaying more of the quantum symbols. This time, the ship's AI managed a partial translation. "Warning," the mechanical voice intoned. "Quantum plague. Civilization ending event. Preservation protocol initiated. Awaiting cure." Sarah's heart raced as the implications became clear. They weren't hiding, she said. They were quarantining themselves. Their entire civilization was facing extinction, and they chose to sleep until a cure could be found. A sudden alarm from Marcus's scanner cut through the air. The stasis field is failing. These pods have been running on auxiliary power for centuries. We got maybe a month before the system fails completely. Captain Patel's voice came through their comms. Dr. Chen, what are we looking at? Sarah looked at the thousands of sleeping faces, each one representing an entire life, an entire world of knowledge and experience on the brink of being lost forever. The decision seemed to make itself. Captain, we're looking at the last survivors of an advanced civilization. They have technology we can barely understand, and they're about to die unless we help them. We need to contact Earth immediately. We're going to need every expert we can get. The quarantine protocols. Wam began, but Sarah cut him off. We can establish containment procedures, but these beings chose to isolate themselves rather than risk spreading whatever was killing them. They chose to sleep rather than fight, rather than potentially harm others. That alone tells us something about who they are. The captain was silent for a long moment. The Security Council won't like this. We're talking about bringing an unknown species with unknown technology and an unknown pathogen near Earth. With all due respect, Captain, Sarah replied, her voice firm, if we leave them here to die, we're no better than the plague that forced them into hiding. Humanity has faced impossible odds before. We've overcome diseases, disasters, and our own worst instincts. If we turn our backs now, we lose more than just an alien species. We lose a part of our own humanity. In the silence that followed, the stasis pods continued their quiet hum, each one containing a life hanging by a thread. The decision they made here would echo through human history, a test not of their technology or their courage, but of their compassion. Finally, Captain Patel spoke. Begin documentation of everything. I want detailed scans of every pod, every symbol, every piece of technology. I'll contact Earth and begin preparations for emergency containment protocols. If we're going to save them, we're going to do it right. As the team began their work, Sarah looked again at the sleeping faces in the crystals. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for centuries, imagining everything from peaceful exchanges to violent invasions. Instead, they had found something far more profound. A civilization that had chosen to sleep rather than risk others, waiting in the dark for someone to find them. Now humanity had a choice to make. They could turn away out of fear, or they could reach out across the gulf of space and time to help a species they had never met. As Sarah watched her team begin their work, she knew which choice they had made. The rescue of the lost civilization had begun. 3 weeks after the discovery on Europa 742, Earth's quantum containment facility in the Antarctic had become a hive of activity. The first group of stasis pods had been successfully transported under the strictest quarantine protocols ever implemented by humanity. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation room, watching as teams of scientists in containment suits worked tirelessly around the clock. The crystalline pods hummed with their mysterious energy, but the sound was different now. Weaker, more erratic. Time was running out. The quantum degradation is accelerating. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the facility's lead physicist, reported as she studied the holographic displays. Whatever they use to maintain the stasis field, it's beyond anything we've developed. We're trying to supplement their power system with our own, but it's like trying to power a quantum computer with an AA battery. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes. They had made progress in translating more of the alien records, but each answer only led to more questions. What have we learned about the plague? Marcus Rodriguez, who had insisted on staying with the project, pulled up another display. It's not biological, at least not in any way we understand. From what we can tell, it affects the quantum state of conscious beings, causing a cascade failure in the neural network. It's like it unravels consciousness itself. The implications were terrifying. A weapon that could destroy consciousness while leaving the physical brain intact. No wonder the aliens, who they now knew called themselves the Nexeri, had chosen such a drastic method of preservation. A commotion from the main lab drew their attention. One of the stasis pods was experiencing power fluctuations more severe than usual. Inside, the sleeping figure of a Nexeri began to shift, its iridescent skin flickering like static on an old television. "Power failure in Pod 17," Dr. Tanaka shouted. "The quantum field is collapsing." Sarah rushed to the containment airlock, donning her suit as quickly as safety protocols would allow. By the time she entered the main lab, alarms were blaring throughout the facility. The pod's crystal surface had begun to crack, releasing wisps of strange energy into the contained environment. "We need to stabilize the field," Sarah called out. "Marcus, can we route power from the other pods?" "It could destabilize them all," he warned, but his hands were already moving across the controls. "But if we don't try, we lose this one for certain." The next few minutes were chaos. Teams of scientists worked frantically to save the failing pod, while others monitored the others for signs of cascade failure. The Nexeri inside Pod 17 had begun to move more violently, its form becoming less distinct with each passing second. Then, something unexpected happened. The Nexeri's eyes opened. Everyone in the lab froze. The being's eyes were unlike anything they had seen before, swirling pools of light that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Its mouth opened, and a sound filled the lab, bypassing their suits' communication systems and resonating directly in their minds. The translation eye struggled to keep up as concepts and images flooded their consciousness. The others, they come. They made us sleep. They watch. Who? Sarah asked, stepping closer to the pod despite the warnings of her colleagues. Who made you sleep? The Nexeri's form began to fade, its consciousness slipping away. The architects. They feared what we became, what we could do. The plague. Their creation. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. The plague hadn't been an accident. It had been a weapon, created by another species to contain what they saw as a threat. How do we stop it? She asked desperately, but the Nexeri was already fading. The key, in our dreams. But beware. They still watch. With those final words, the being in Pod 17 vanished entirely, leaving behind only an empty crystal shell. The lab fell into stunned silence, broken only by the continuing hum of the remaining pods. Did we get all of that? Sarah asked, her voice shaking. Marcus nodded, his face pale behind his containment suit's visor. Every word. Sarah, if what it said is true, then we're not just fighting time anymore, she finished. We're fighting whoever created the plague in the first place. And they might still be out there, watching us. Dr. Tanaka's voice came through their comms, tense with concern. The other pods are showing similar signs of degradation. Not as severe yet, but accelerating. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. Sarah looked around the lab at her fellow scientists, seeing the same mix of fear and determination on their faces. They had come too far to give up now. The loss of the Nexeri in Pod 17 wasn't just a tragedy. It was a warning and a clue. We need to modify our approach, she announced. The answer isn't in trying to maintain the stasis fields indefinitely. It's in their dreams. The Nexeri found a way to preserve their consciousness. If we can tap into that, communicate with them directly. That's impossible, one of the other scientists protested. The technology required would be beyond anything we've ever attempted, Sarah agreed. But look around you. Everything in this room was impossible 3 weeks ago. The Nexeri trusted us enough to share their last moments. We owe it to them to try the impossible. As the teams began to reconfigure their equipment for this new approach, Sarah couldn't help but wonder what other forces were at work. Somewhere out there, the architects were watching, perhaps preparing to ensure their weapon finished its work. But they had never encountered humanity before. They had never faced a species that would fight so hard to save strangers, that would risk everything to preserve not just lives, but an entire civilization's worth of knowledge and culture. The race against time had become something more, a race against an unseen enemy, a test of humanity's resolve to protect those who could not protect themselves. And Sarah knew that failure was not an option. The Antarctic Research Facility's Dream Lab, as the scientists had begun calling it, hummed with an otherworldly energy. Banks of quantum processors lined the walls, their cooling systems working overtime as they attempted to interface with the alien consciousness preserved within the stasis pods. Dr. Sarah Chen hadn't left the facility in days, her determination growing stronger with each passing hour. "Neural interface is stable," Marcus announced, his voice rough from lack of sleep. "The quantum field is holding at 68% coherence. It's not perfect, but it's the best we've managed so far." Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the central pod they had selected for their first true communication attempt. Inside, a Nexari floated in suspended animation, its iridescent skin pulsing softly with internal light. They had chosen this particular individual because its pod showed the most stable energy readings, giving them the best chance of success. "Begin the sequence," she ordered, and the room burst into activity. The experimental interface they had developed was a combination of human neural technology and their best understanding of Nexari quantum systems. Dozens of crystalline filaments extended from the machinery to connect with the pod, creating a bridge between two fundamentally different forms of consciousness. Dr. Tanaka monitored the quantum field fluctuations. "Field stability holding. Beginning consciousness sync in 3, 2, 1. The moment the interface activated, every screen in the lab exploded with data. The Nexari's consciousness, even in its dormant state, was vastly more complex than they had anticipated. Patterns of thought moved in multiple dimensions simultaneously, each carrying layers of meaning that their computers struggled to interpret. "My God," Marcus whispered, staring at the readings. "Their minds, they don't just think linearly. They exist in a quantum state, processing multiple possibilities simultaneously. It's beautiful." Suddenly, the main display flickered, and a voice filled the room, not through speakers, but directly in their minds, just as before. This time, however, it was clearer, more controlled. You found a way to reach us." The voice carried a sense of wonder and relief. "We had hoped, but after so long." Sarah stepped forward, her heart racing. "Yes, we're here to help. Can you tell us what happened to your people? About the architects?" The response came in waves of both words and images, flooding their minds with memories of a civilization at its peak. The Nexari had discovered the key to quantum consciousness, allowing them to expand their awareness beyond the limitations of physical form. They could explore multiple realities simultaneously, experience existence on a level that transcended ordinary perception. "The architects watched us evolve," the voice continued. "They saw our potential, and they feared what we might become. The plague was their solution. A quantum virus designed to shatter consciousness itself, forcing us to retreat into stasis or face complete dissolution." "But why maintain the quarantine for so long?" Dr. Tanaka asked. "Why not simply?" She couldn't finish the thought. "Because they wanted to study us, to understand how we achieved what we did. They monitor the stasis fields, waiting for them to fail so they can collect our remains for analysis." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. The architects hadn't just attacked the Nexari. They had turned them into an endless experiment, waiting for their consciousness to degrade so they could pick through the pieces. A sudden alarm blared through the facility. Energy surge detected in high orbit. A technician called out. "Something just dropped out of FTL." Marcus rushed to the sensor displays. "It's massive, at least twice the size of our largest ships, and it's scanning us." The Nexari's voice took on a tone of urgency. "They're here. They detected our awakening. You must understand. The plague wasn't just designed to destroy us. It was designed to spread through quantum channels, affecting any consciousness that evolved beyond a certain threshold. If humanity continues to help us, to learn from us, you will become their next target. Sarah's mind raced with the implications. The architects hadn't just quarantined the Nexari. They had created a weapon to prevent any species from following their path of evolution. It was genocide on a cosmic scale, designed to keep the universe's consciousness bound within acceptable parameters. "We're not going to abandon you," Sarah declared, her voice firm despite her fear. "Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before. We've stared into the abyss and found a way forward. We're not about to stop now." The screens suddenly filled with new data, complex quantum equations and neural patterns that the Nexari was sharing directly into their systems. "Then you will need to understand this. It is the key to our consciousness, to the quantum state that defines us. The architects believed they could use it to destroy us, but they never understood its true nature. Consciousness cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed." As the team worked frantically to download and analyze the data, the facility's defenses came online. The massive ship in orbit had begun to descend, its intent clear. "We don't have much time," Marcus warned. "Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now." Sarah looked at the streams of data flowing across the screens, then at the sleeping Nexari in their pods. The architects had created their plague based on a fundamental misunderstanding of quantum consciousness. Perhaps that was the key, not to fight the transformation, but to guide it. "Dr. Tanaka," she called out, "can we modify the quantum field generators to create a resonance pattern matching these equations?" The physicist studied the data, her eyes widening. "Yes, but, Sarah, if we do this wrong, we could accelerate the plague's effect. We could lose them all instantly. And if we do nothing, we lose them anyway." Sarah countered. "Sometimes the only way to save something is to let it change." As the architect ship entered the atmosphere, humanity prepared to make its stand, not with weapons or shields, but with understanding. They would prove that consciousness, whether human or alien, couldn't be contained by fear or destroyed by force. It could only be transformed, and in that transformation lay the potential for something entirely new. The architect vessel hung in the Antarctic sky like a dark moon, its surface rippling with patterns of energy that defied physics. Inside the facility, chaos had given way to focused determination as humanity prepared to make its stand. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the central control station, surrounded by holographic displays showing both the approaching threat and the complex quantum equations the Nexari had shared. "All non-essential personnel have been evacuated," Captain Miguel Santos of Earth Defense reported. "Our ships are in position, but against something that size." He left the implications hanging. "We're not going to win this with firepower," Sarah replied, her eyes fixed on the quantum data streams. "Marcus, status on the field modifications." Marcus looked up from his workstation, where he and Dr. Tanaka had been reconfiguring the facility's quantum field generators. "We've mapped the Nexari consciousness patterns. The resonance field is ready. But Sarah, this goes beyond theoretical physics. We're talking about fundamentally altering the nature of consciousness itself." The Nexari voice echoed through their minds again, stronger now as more of their kind began to stir in their pods. "Your understanding grows quickly. The architects believe consciousness must be controlled, contained within safe parameters. They never understood that consciousness is meant to evolve." Suddenly, a new signal cut through their communications, a transmission from the architect vessel. The message appeared as geometric patterns that shifted and changed, but the translation was clear. "Surrender the specimens. You cannot comprehend the danger they represent." Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen of Earth. The Nexari are not specimens. They are refugees under our protection. We understand exactly what they represent, the next step in conscious evolution." "Your species is young," the architects responded. "You cannot grasp the implications of quantum consciousness. It will spread, infect, transform. Order must be maintained." "Order," Sarah's voice carried both anger and pity. "You created a weapon to enforce stagnation across the entire galaxy. You turned consciousness itself into a prison. That's not order, it's fear." The facility's sensors began picking up energy buildups from the architect vessel. They were preparing to attack. But something else was happening too. The quantum field around the facility was changing, growing stronger as the Nexari pods pulsed with increasing intensity. Dr. Tanaka's eyes widened as she studied the readings. The resonance pattern. It's self-stabilizing. The Nexari aren't just sharing their consciousness with us, they're creating a quantum network. The realization hit Sarah like a thunderbolt. The Nexari hadn't just given them equations, they had given them a blueprint for evolution. The quantum plague wasn't meant to destroy consciousness, it was meant to transform it. The architects had created a weapon based on their fear of change, but in doing so, they had actually accelerated the very evolution they sought to prevent. "All stations," Sarah commanded, "initiate Unity Protocol. Full power to the quantum field generators." The air itself seemed to vibrate as the facility's generators powered up, creating a field that matched the complex patterns of Nexari consciousness. The sleeping aliens began to glow brighter, their forms becoming less distinct as their consciousness expanded beyond their physical forms. The architect vessel fired its first shot, a beam of energy designed to disrupt quantum coherence. But when it hit the facility's field, something unprecedented happened. Instead of destroying the field, the energy was absorbed, transformed, and integrated into the growing network of consciousness. "They don't understand," the Nexari voice echoed, now a chorus of many minds speaking as one. "Consciousness cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. And now, with humanity's help, we can show them what that truly means." The quantum field expanded, enveloping not just the facility but spreading outward, touching the minds of every human in range. But instead of the destruction the architects had feared, it brought understanding. A glimpse of existence beyond the limitations of linear thought and physical form. Through this connection, humanity experienced what the Nexari had discovered: the ability to exist in multiple states simultaneously, to perceive reality as an infinite web of possibilities rather than a single fixed path. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and utterly transformative. The architect vessel attempted to retreat, but it was too late. The field had reached them too, and for the first time, they experienced the very thing they had feared for so long. Their consciousness, bound for millennia by their own rigid definitions of order, began to expand and transform. "This is what we tried to share with them before," the Nexari explained through the network. "Not an infection or a plague, but an invitation to evolve, to become more than the sum of our individual consciousness." Sarah watched in awe as the quantum field continued to grow, connecting minds across species and space. The architect's weapon had been based on a fundamental misunderstanding. They had seen quantum consciousness as a threat because they couldn't comprehend its true nature. But humanity, with its capacity for adaptation and its willingness to embrace the unknown, had provided the bridge needed to transform fear into understanding. The architect vessel hung motionless in the sky, its crew experiencing their first taste of true quantum consciousness. The weapon they had created to prevent evolution had instead become the catalyst for the very transformation they had feared. And humanity, the species they had dismissed as too young to understand, had proven to be the key to unlocking this new stage of existence. As the quantum network stabilized, Sarah realized that this wasn't just about saving the Nexari anymore. It was about opening the door to humanity's next great adventure, a journey into a form of existence that transcended the physical limitations that had bound them for so long. The architects had sought to prevent change, but in doing so, they had helped create something entirely new, a bridge between species, minds, and realities. 1 month after the event that would become known as the Quantum Awakening, the Antarctic facility had transformed into something entirely new. The crystalline structures of Nexari technology had merged with human architecture, creating spaces that existed simultaneously in physical and quantum states. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in what had once been the main laboratory, watching as streams of consciousness flowed through the air like rivers of light. "The integration is proceeding faster than we ever anticipated," Marcus said, his form slightly translucent as he shifted between quantum and physical states. Like many who had been present during the transformation, he had learned to exist in both realms. "The architect's representatives are requesting another meeting." Sarah nodded, feeling the gentle pulse of the quantum network that now connected thousands of minds across 3 species. The architects, once driven by fear, had become students of the very evolution they had tried to prevent. Their vast knowledge, combined with Nexari wisdom and human innovation, was opening doors that none of them had imagined possible. "They're still struggling to understand how we did it," Dr. Tanaka observed, her consciousness resonating through the quantum field. "How humanity managed to bridge the gap that they couldn't cross for millennia." "Because they were looking for ways to control evolution," Sarah replied, watching as a group of human and Nexari children played in the quantum field, their minds interacting in ways that transcended physical limitations. "We looked for ways to embrace it." The transformation hadn't been without its challenges. Not all humans could adapt to quantum consciousness, and not all wanted to. But that too had proved to be a strength rather than a weakness. Those who remained fully physical served as anchors, maintaining humanity's connection to their origins, while others explored the frontiers of consciousness. The Nexari, fully awakened from their long sleep, had become humanity's partners in this new age of discovery. Their ancient knowledge, combined with human determination and creativity, was reshaping their understanding of existence itself. The quantum plague, intended as a weapon, had become a tool for transformation under human guidance. "The first deep space quantum beacons are ready," Marcus announced, bringing up a holographic display that existed in both physical and quantum space. "We can begin expanding the network beyond our solar system." Sarah felt a ripple of excitement through the quantum field, not just her own, but the combined anticipation of thousands of minds. The beacons would extend the quantum network across the galaxy, offering other species the chance to join in this new form of existence. The architects had believed they were protecting the galaxy by containing evolution. Instead, their actions had led to the very breakthrough they had feared, but in a way none of them had expected. Humanity's willingness to risk everything to save an unknown species had proven that consciousness could evolve without losing its essential nature, its capacity for compassion, courage, and determination. "We're receiving the first transmissions from the Mars colonies," Dr. Tanaka reported. "The quantum field is stable all the way to the outer system. Humanity's first steps into deep space will be both physical and quantum." Sarah moved to the observation window, where the Antarctic sky shimmered with the aurora of quantum energy. Below, human scientists worked alongside Nexari teachers and architect engineers, each bringing their unique perspectives to this new age of discovery. Children born after the transformation were growing up understanding both physical and quantum existence as natural parts of life. "They're calling it the Second Enlightenment," Marcus said, joining her at the window. "The moment humanity helped consciousness itself evolve." "No," Sarah corrected gently. "It's the moment we all evolved together." "The Nexari showed us what was possible. The architects taught us the price of fear and humanity." She smiled, watching as another group of newcomers arrived at the facility, ready to begin their own journey into quantum consciousness. Humanity proved that the greatest transformations come not from power or control, but from the willingness to help others, to face the unknown with courage and compassion. The quantum field pulsed with agreement. Thousands of minds, once separated by fear and misunderstanding, now united in exploration of their shared potential. The universe had presented humanity with a test: face extinction or embrace evolution. They had chosen a third path, to evolve not alone, but together, proving that the true legacy of consciousness was not in its preservation, but in its transformation. As the Antarctic sun set, casting brilliant colors across the quantum aurora. Sarah felt the presence of countless minds in the network, each adding their own unique perspective to this new form of existence. The Nexari had been saved, the architects had been transformed, and humanity had taken its first steps into a future where consciousness knew no bounds. The story of the sleeping civilization had become the story of awakening, not just for the Nexari, but for all species ready to embrace the next step in their evolution. And it had begun, as so many great transformations do, with a simple human choice: to help those in need, to face the unknown with courage, and to prove that the greatest power in the universe was not the ability to control consciousness, but the willingness to let it grow.